Hey guys, welcome back to the Totally 90s podcast, where two besties talk about all things 90s all the time. My name is Steph, and here with me is the most beautiful, what's your name?
Oh, Stephanie, that's you. Justine. Hi, Steph. Thank you.
Hey
How are
me.
you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I am ready for today or tonight, whatever you want to call it. I am so
Waiting for
ready for this
tonight.
session.
Oh my
Do-
God.
I for real. I'm so
Yeah.
excited for you because okay, so we're just gonna here, you take it over for a bit and then I'll say my little spiel. Anything
Oh
you
my
want to say,
God.
Steph?
I was so excited. Well, yes, I'm very excited. A la Jessie Spano. We were just talking about her. So that's what
Mhm.
came to mind.
Okay.
To welcome you all to the first installment of another new series, or I'm going to call it a tree branch, if you will,
I
of the
like that.
Totally 90s podcast. And it's called 90s Crime Talk with Steph. Dun, dun, dun.
Right? We need some music that we could cue in here.
I know if I could have the Law and Order music queued up and ready, I would. But
Right?
I'll tell you after what happened. But yes, so pretend that you heard the SVU.
Hmm.
And so we've talked about this before, but I am a huge, huge, huge true crime fan. Okay. I love it
Hmm.
all. I love relaxing at night, watching a murderous true crime documentary right before bed. It really like soothes me. And as we
It
all
doesn't give
know,
you nightmares.
sometimes it does. I'm not gonna lie. Like I'll have some crazy dreams, but I just it's a way to relax. And Angel will fall asleep like a baby. Like it lulls her to sleep. This murder. So I don't know what that says, but like we love it. We're relaxed. We love it. And you know that we are huge fans of the 90s. So we thought,
Yes.
what better way to marry the two than this true crime installment called 90s Crime Talk. So
Yes.
I'm so excited. We had such a blast talking about the Polly Class case. I mean, I don't want to say it was a blast, but
Right.
like just learning a little bit more about her, the law and everything. And it was so close to home. Um,
Hmm.
I was like, I really would like to do this again. So
Oh, totally.
I'm so excited. Yay.
And this is your like you said, this is your forte. It really is. I mean, you are the epitome of research, um crime. Like anytime I talk to Steph, you always with never it never fails. You always mention Law and Order
Can't
all
help
the
it.
time. Like you live and breathe. Is that what it is? Live and breathe
Yes.
Law and Order. And I love it because I have never seen Law and Order ever. But, like with me, I love stuff like this too. I love, crime. I mean, I don't really watch crime shows, but I like crime stories and hearing different accounts. And I really, really, really have become invested in these stories. Like that's what I enjoyed about the poly class one that we did was because there's all the little tiny pieces of information that when you see it, it's like any other news brief. When you hear
Mhm.
it and you see it on the news, you're not getting the full story. So when you actually get to hear all the little details that lead up to, someone being arrested or convicted, whatever, it's kind of crazy. Like I'm gonna say it, you go down a rabbit hole and and it's insane all the things that lead up to these things or learning about the people when they were younger and how it affected like
Right.
how they are now. And you're so eloquent with how you come up with, your research and how detailed it is. And I mean, you're going to do fantastic. I am so
Oh,
excited. No, for
I'm,
real.
I'm
Because
red.
you just get so excited over this stuff. And I love that. I love seeing how passionate people are about things that they love. And like, I'm sure people watching can see it and feel it, like just looking at you. So, are you going to tell people what we're going to be talking about today?
Yes, I thought we would start with a sort of controversial story, if you will. And that would be the one and only Mary Kay Letourneau. Now,
Ooh.
that was a household name back in
Mm-hmm.
the 90s and 2000s. And a couple years ago. So
Mhm.
I thought it'd be like interesting to just talk about it. I know lots of people have already talked about it, and but this is going to be like, just our take on it. So
Yes.
yeah, let's dive on in.
Yes, I'm so excited. Okay. I'm gonna
Yay.
grab some popcorn.
You're so cute. So I thought I'd get started first with just a little bit of a backstory on Mary Kay Letourneau, on who she
Mhm.
was. So she is Mary Catherine Schmitz, better known as Mary Kay Letourneau. And she was born in California, in Tustin, California, on January 30th, 1962. So she was the daughter of Mary and John. How proper is that? Mary and John
Right.
Schmitz. And she was the fourth of 7 kids. Okay,
Wow.
7. And they were raised in a very strict Catholic household. One thing that's super interesting is her father, John, was actually a Republican politician, and he was a state senator, US congressman, and he even ran for president in 1972. So I don't know.
Shoot, really? I
Yeah,
didn't know that.
yeah, this
Okay, I missed
whole,
that.
and actually, 2 of his sons, I believe, became involved in politics as well. One worked for President Bush and the other for President Trump. So like, huge, right?
Wow.
So like they
Yeah.
continued down that path.
Dang.
John ran, but he didn't end up winning. And
Mhm.
if you look at pictures and videos of Mary and John, my God, they look like the 1950s, like man and
Hmm.
woman. Okay. Like
Yeah,
he
that's true
had
because
like,
I did. Mhm.
right, like the
Yeah,
hair, the bouffant appear. Is that what you call it?
exactly.
A
Yeah.
bouffant?
Uh-huh.
And and he had like a tiny black mustache, like it was very
Uh-huh.
dramatic, and he had one of those old-timey like 1950s newscaster voices, like
Mhm.
like he should have had a cigar or a cigarette like dangling off the side of his
Right.
mouth and calling people schmitty, like that's what he looked like.
Schmitty.
So that was the family.
Uh-huh.
And so it sounds all picturesque and ooh, like, but it really wasn't. So Mary Kay, I might waffle between Mary Kay and Mary, by the way, but
Mhm.
Mary Kay, her younger years weren't really all sunshine and roses. In 1973, her 3-year-old brother Philip actually drowned in the family pool. And what's super like kind of scary and sad was she was about 10 years old when this happened, and she was in charge of watching her siblings. Okay, so
Wow. And didn't she
so
have a friend over or something in that?
she was actually on the other side of the pool with her other
Mhm.
brother,
Okay.
and they were playing as kids do. So
Of
she's like
course.
playing, and in the meanwhile, the toddler, falls in and ends up drowning. It like it was all super quick, and her mother blamed her for it pretty much.
Wow.
So yeah, and
Which, you know what, though, is just real quick, that's sad when you think about it. And I know, and you'll get to that, but I know that they thought that that might have caused some sort of mental, you know, illness in her down the road. But when you're in a pool, like I almost drowned in a pool, same scenario where my cousin was on the opposite side on the deep end and I was in the shallow end and I fell.
Hmm.
And I was under there and I didn't know how to swim at that time. I was little and I couldn't get up. And luckily he was aware and he saw me, well, didn't see me there anymore. And he came over and he basically saved my life. But it's, I
Yeah.
mean, that's sad because it's so quick.
It is. And I didn't know that about you. The same thing happened to me actually when I was 7. And this is
Mhm,
why I am fearful of pools. So you went the positive route, you learned
mhm,
how to swim. My ass, never again. So like
mhm,
I was having fun. Me and my parents were in LA, and I had on I'll never forget, an alligator floaty like around my
mhm.
waist. I was having a ball. Like I was in
How
the
cute.
bed, like
Uh-huh.
having a blast. My
Right.
dad is super helicopter dad, but the
Mhm.
one time he takes his eye off of me, I slip off my alligator floaty. I don't know why, and I sink to the bottom. And it was like super quick, but he turns back, doesn't see me,
Mhm.
races in, pulls me out. That was enough to scare
Wow.
me for life because how quick it was. Like,
Yeah,
what the hell? So
exactly.
yeah, so yeah, I still don't know how to swim, but whatevs. So that that happened. And I saw in a documentary that Mary Kay's best friend, she actually was a part of this documentary. She was around when this happened, not at the scene, but like she was her best friend at that time.
Mhm.
She indicated that Mary never talked about this incident.
Wow.
She
See?
just kind of moved past it. So I think that's kind of important to remember.
Definitely.
And then also I apologize. I didn't give trigger warnings ahead of time, but
Mhm.
we should do a trigger warning for sexual assault of a minor and mention of domestic violence.
Mhm.
So apologies for that. So then we're gonna get into it. Mary Kay later on in life claimed that she was the victim of sexual assault by a family member when she was about 7. So like you see 7 and then 10,
Mhm.
she loses her brother. So 2 huge traumatic events before she's even 12 years old
Mhm.
occurred to this poor child. And the sexual assault was by a relative, and it happened a lot.
Mhm.
So, and I can't imagine her telling anyone in her household, again because of the Catholic upbringing. And
Right.
I learned that her mom was kind of very hands off, very much strict. She didn't
Mhm.
let her receive sexual education in school, would pull her out. Like, so
Wow.
I can't
Well,
imagine her. Mhm.
and just by those pictures,
Oh,
they're
yeah.
so cookie cutter that,
Frigid.
I mean, just sweep it under the table kind of thing,
Mhm.
or the
As
carpet,
they
whatever you want to call it.
exactly,
Mhm.
exactly. So we got that. And then things are kind of quiet after that until Mary was about 20 years old.
Mhm.
So in 1982, news broke out, ironically enough, that her father was having an affair with a former student.
Wow.
So, okay. So now we've
Dang.
got the sexual assault that occurred when she was 7. And now she's got her father having an affair with a former student and fathering 2 kids with that former student. Okay. So let's put pins in both of those.
That's
Okay.
for sure. Heavens.
Because it's a pretty creepy coincidence and a foreshadowing of what's to come in her life, right?
Exactly. And that's like they say, you tend to not mirror, but
Yes,
like
yes.
history tends to repeat itself. Many times, if you look at your family members, whether it be your dad or your mom, a lot of times you tend to do the same things that your parents have done, do the same mistakes,
Oh yeah.
all those things. And they try to teach you not to. But in this case, that's really eerie.
Isn't it called like learned behavior, or is this sort
Mhm.
of like a little
Exactly.
okay?
I
Yeah,
actually have
yeah.
that written down because it's
Ooh.
very prevalent in the story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So okay, so I'm gonna just fast forward just a wee. So that the whole thing happened with her dad, scandalous. She was super close with her father. So this affected her, this poor girl. But at any rate, in 1983, Mary Kay went to Arizona State University. Hey, my alma mater.
Right? Mhm.
And this is where she meets her first husband, Steve Letourneau. So they begin dating, and just a few months later, she gets preggers with her first child. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. And again, mom and dad are very Catholic. So at the insistence of her parental units, she and Steve decide to get married. And
Of
so they're
course.
like, yay, this is fun. Whoops, I'm pregnant. Well, we got to get married. So they get married. So I don't know if they're necessarily in love or anything, but they get
Hmm.
married. They dip on out of ASU and they move to Alaska, which is where Steve is originally from. So they're
Wow.
there. They're only there for about a year, and then
Man, talk about two extremes.
right.
That's
Well,
nuts.
the woman's life is fascinating. So
Very.
so after Alaska, they moved to Seattle. So this is like all a year later, right? He's working he's working as a baggage handler
Hmm.
for the airport. And so his hours are all wonky.
Hmm.
And Mary decides to go back to school because she didn't finish at ASU. So she goes back to school to get her teaching degree because she wanted to become a teacher, and ends up graduating from Seattle University in 1989. And shortly after, she begins working at Shorewood Elementary School, which is where she started out teaching the 2nd grade.
Dun, dun, dun,
So,
dun.
mhm. So let me preface that the Letourneau's marriage was not perfect at all. So
Mhm.
they got married hella fast. They were struggling financially because they got married fast. They start popping out the kids
Mhm.
quickly, like one after the other. So they have 4 kids, right? Like pretty fast. And I even heard and actually read in a couple places that they were unfaithful. I think
Mhm.
on both parts.
Yeah, I read
Yeah.
he had a
Hmm.
few times, but
Hmm. Hmm.
dang, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Real quick, I must give her props though for
Hmm.
finishing school with all those
Right.
kids.
Yeah.
Cuz I mean, it's hard to even finish a freaking meal,
Yeah. Exactly.
you
With I can't
know?
imagine. I can't imagine. And
Exactly. I
4.
mean, I only have
Yeah.
one. So, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah. So she did the damn thing. And so she's now a teacher. And oh, I'm so sorry. I wanted to note that later on, when shit hits the fan, she would claim that Steve was actually physically abusive towards her. So there was some like domestic violence claims.
Mhm.
Nothing was ever really proven. It was kind of just from her like word of mouth, but she told a couple of people close to her. And then
Mhm.
the cops were even called to their house at one point, but no charges were ever filed. So there's nothing out there that says yes or no. But I think it's
Wow,
important to say that that was another thing.
definitely.
So we have the two of them living a not so picture perfect life with their 4 kids in Seattle, Washington. So she was a second
Wow.
grade teacher at this point, and this is where she first meets Vili Fualaau or Fulau,
Mhm.
because he was actually a student in her second grade class first. And let me just point
Mhm.
out, nothing sexual or inappropriate happened while he was in her second grade class. Not that what I'm about to discuss makes it any
Right.
better or excuses it, but I wanted to point that out at least. So fast forward a little bit to 1996. Mary Kay is now teaching 6th grade, and Vili is her student once more. And at this point, she's 34 and he
Mhm.
is 12 years old and just 1 year older than one of her sons, than her oldest son. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
So 34 and he's 12?
Yeah.
That's
And
22 year.
yeah. And I know yeah, you've seen pictures of them, right? Like she's
Yes.
this pretty blonde, she
Mhm.
looks good for her age,
She does.
and then Vili looks older
He
than,
does. He
you
looks
know,
over 18, or
definitely.
at
And
least 18.
I totally agree. And he was kind of like, I'm gonna from the wrong side of the tracks, like he was, his dad was in jail.
Mhm.
His mom, Suna, was, raising the family on her own,
Right.
working all the time. So she's not there to keep an eye on her kid.
Mhm.
He's not doing so great in school. And so he's got that little bad boy,
Mhm.
moodiness to
Was
him.
he friends with her any of her children? Because they were probably around the same age, right?
Not yet, but she does encourage a friendship. Yeah.
Ooh, okay. The plot
Yeah.
thickens. Do
Yeah.
tell.
So I should point out first that he was not the best student, and she tended to like gravitate towards people that kind of had it like hard. She had a
Mhm.
big heart. She wanted to help people, and she wanted to help him. So, and she saw that he was kind of like a really talented artist. And so she was kind of impressed by that. She's like, let me take him under my wing. She would encourage him to work hard at, really mastering
Mm.
this artistic talent. She
Mhm.
even took it to art galleries later on. Okay. So like, and
Wow.
that was a no field trip either. Okay. It was a one-on-one going to an art gallery.
Yeah,
So,
wow. As
and I,
as they would say, what is it? Grooming him? I
exactly.
don't like that
I
word
hate that word
personally.
too.
It's
First of
just
all,
ugh.
when I hear people say he was grooming her, I picture like a horse's mane and a
Yes,
brush.
exactly. I'm like, how did this even come about? You know what I
Yeah,
mean? It's a to me, it's a creepy word. I just don't like it, but it is what it is, and that's what it seems like. But
totally.
I must say, like, you know, we've all had teachers that
Mhm.
have like a innocence to them, but also a very caring, nurturing feeling.
Yes.
And especially for him, being that
Hmm.
he came from a broken home and he wasn't getting that attention there, I could see where she was someone that he just, adored,
Yeah.
and maybe fell in love with. Like, a crush,
Yes.
right?
We've all
Because
had them.
yeah, I mean, I remember Tony saying that when he was little in kindergarten, or maybe it was first grade, like his teacher, she was so sweet and pretty, and he was just like so in love with her. You know what I mean? Like, but he took it a step further,
Oh yeah.
and
I
she did too.
mean, he would later on say like he had a crush on her since second grade, and like he would
Wow.
like try to sneak a peek under her skirt, I read in one of the
Dang.
articles. And I'm like, how did, was she like just whoops, or was he like, under the desk, like
Right.
because he pretended to, I don't know, but that he was quoted saying that,
That's
and I was like,
creepy.
ooh. Yeah. But prior to all that, she was like, this is perfect when my son is, around the same age, like they could be
Hmm.
friends, that could help him like feel motivated. So, and so he was always
Hmm.
at the Letourneau house, eating dinner with the family, even sleeping over. His mom was aware. Okay. So she's working around the clock to feed her family. And he was like, wow, Mary Kay, Miss Letourneau, she's such a caring teacher. She's setting such a good example for my son, helping
Hmm.
him. She was all for it. You know what I mean? Like she
How sad.
she trusted this teacher with her son.
Definitely.
So I don't blame her at all. You know what I mean?
No, because you always put, I mean, when I think about even Presley's teachers, like you trust them. Like, I mean, you trust them every day, day in and day out with your children. Like, you wouldn't
Exactly.
think that a teacher would have other intentions, especially like that. I mean,
I
that's
mean,
pretty sad,
now we all do after this.
of
I mean,
course.
but like
That's for
it's
sure.
taking something so precious, like having like
Mhm.
this role model, take it to that level is just yeah, but we'll go to that.
Yeah.
So anyway, so this is all going on, like everyone's getting all chummy with one another. So
Hmm.
they're growing closer and closer the more time they spend together.
Hmm.
They started writing each other notes, like little notes back and forth,
Hmm.
listing qualities
Interesting.
they admired in one another, poems, and so forth.
Wow.
Yeah. And they started innocent, though I don't think that act is innocent at all.
No.
And they started to become more intimate, like started talking about like body parts and
Hmm.
things like that. So
That's so
yeah.
disturbing.
So in
Wow.
May, in May of 1996, so we're still in 96, Mary takes Billy out for dessert. It's just the two of them. And
Hmm.
I think it was to celebrate like getting a good grade on a test or something. I don't know, but they were out for dessert. They're in
Hmm.
her car parked listening to love songs. Excuse me. They're listening to love songs. And he decides to shoot his shot and kiss her. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. It's
And
getting pretty steamy in there.
yeah. She
Shoot.
doesn't, and she does not push him away. She
Oh my
lets him
God.
kiss
Ew.
her and kisses him back. And Vili would later on say on the stand, I think when he was like, it was one of his lawsuits because he sued like the police department and the school
Hmm.
later on. He said, he goes, I was on top of her. Her legs were open. So yeah, this is what happened. We were there for like over 30 minutes.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I mean, I've heard things even in the past, like how he always stated that it was him, that
Yeah.
he was the one that was the aggressor or
Pursued
the
her.
the one that pursued her. And,
Precisely.
you know, still,
It takes two.
exactly. You know that's wrong.
Exactly.
I wouldn't even, why would you even look that way? You're a kid. He's a kid. Ew.
Yeah. I mean, and then someone could argue that she's getting attention, from someone. It feels good. She's not getting that same kind of attention at home. And it's kind of
Mhm.
like a break away from the stress of being a wife and a mom to four kids and struggling to make ends meet. Like it's a release, but still, again, it's a 12-year-old at this point.
Exactly. Yeah, no.
So that happened. And not long after, they take their relationship to the next level in her house while Steve was at work and the kids were asleep upstairs.
I heard, and I don't know if it's true, I heard it was on the roof of their house.
There was an incident on top of a roof.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they were just like not giving two shits. So that
For
happened.
real.
And
Dang.
a little bit later, so the next month in June, they were caught by the cops while parked in her minivan. And the van had a makeshift bed in the back. And she looked like she wasn't wearing pants when they caught her, but then it was clarified that she was wearing a long t-shirt. So
Mm.
like, okay, but still, you look like you barely have clothes on, okay? And
Exactly.
they were like, whoa. And like they had been in the back, but she quickly jumps to the front and Vili's in the back seat pretending to be asleep. So she's like, oh my God, nothing happened. Like I had gotten into a fight with my husband. I was babysitting him. He's 18, by the way. I was babysitting him and I get into this fight. So he leaves, he runs away, and I have to go after him because he's in my care.
Mhm.
And then this is where we are. And so the cops, they were like, we're going to verify this. So they call Suna,
Mhm.
and they said to her, Neen, was, we found these two together. What do you want us to do? They didn't say, we found them in a van. We found them with a bed. We found her looking like disheveled with no pants on.
Exactly.
And he's 18, right? No, they said, they're together.
So
What do
they
you
didn't
want us to do?
verify his age?
No. And Suna's like, what? Oh, you can release him back to her. Like he was staying over. Like, that's fine. That's Miss Letourneau. It's okay. What? So they let them go on
Wow.
their merry way. Okay. And you would think they would maybe chill out a bit after this. Uh-uh.
Hmm.
So we're gonna fast forward a wee bit. So it's safe to assume they continued their little scandalous affair.
Mhm.
February of 97 rolls around. Steve is at home looking for something. He's like looking for something through the drawers or whatever. He comes across the love letters, the little notes between
Oh
Vili and
God.
Mary Kay.
Mhm.
Oh, I'm like, I can't even imagine. He actually goes to confront Vili as if he's going to go and confront like George Smith, who's the same age as him. He goes to confront Vili, a 12-year-old boy, and is like, you need to leave my wife alone. La, la, la. And he's all, okay, like, what is he going to do? So at this, I guess he like vented to a relative or something
Mhm.
when he found it. Cause hello, I would call you right away and be like, what the, like,
Of course.
you gotta tell somebody.
We've all found those things that we didn't want to find, you know?
Uh-huh.
And I mean, obviously he knew who Billy was.
Yes,
So, but why wouldn't he be like, the first thing I would be like, he's a freaking minor. What is she
exactly.
doing?
Exactly. But he was just like, it was always, he was just focused solely on the boy.
Wow.
So he confronts him, back off. Meanwhile, the relative that he told about this little affair
Mhm.
called the cops. He called the cops. Thank
Good.
God someone did.
For real.
And Mary was arrested on March 4th of 97. So it kind of like
Wow.
fairly quickly after. But around the same
Whew.
time of this arrest, it became public that Mary Kay was pregnant with Vili's child.
Uh, I forgot about, I mean, I knew they had children, but I forgot that dang, she's like a
Yeah.
rabbit.
Yes.
Very
Fertile
fertile
Myrtle.
myrtle.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. So yeah, so she's arrested and then it's like, whoops, I'm pregnant. What are we gonna do? So
Mm,
they took that into consideration when they were discussing her sentencing.
mhm.
And they were like, you know what? She's not a danger to the community. She's not a flight risk. Remember that part, the flight risk. They continued the case. They're like, you know what, let's let her give birth, and then afterwards she could plead guilty. So
Hmm.
Mary gave birth to Audrey, a baby girl, on May 29th, 1997, while she was awaiting her sentencing. um they were looking to sentence her for about 6.5 years to 7 years for the crime, but they worked
Mhm.
out a plea deal. And they reduced her sentence to 6 months in jail and 3 years of sex offender treatment.
That's
So
it?
yeah, let that simmer.
Wow.
Yeah, and a major part of the deal was she was never to have contact with Vili, like, that's it.
Okay,
And she couldn't
no,
have contact
okay.
with her kids as well, like, during that.
Wow.
Um, so and it's sad, but
Mhm.
necessary, like, so that had to happen.
Mm.
And yeah, and during all of this drama, Steve is like, "You know what? I'm out. I'm gonna take the kids.
Mhm.
Bye. I'm gonna go to Alaska, be with my family.
Mhm.
I'm gonna take the kids." And I think that's the best thing that he could have done. I
Yes.
cannot imagine the bullying that took place on those
Yeah.
little kids. They were so small. I mean, you're thinking like
Mhm.
the oldest was 12. So like
Exactly.
they're young, they're confused. Why is mom? Where's mom? Where's
Mhm.
Vili? Because Vili was like a fixture in the family.
Right.
So you have
Totally.
all that. So like he had to dip. He's like, okay, we're gonna go. So they left.
Ugh.
Okay. And he ended up filing for divorce a couple years after that in 99 and was granted sole custody of the kids. Again, I think a good
Mhm.
decision. I mean,
Super smart to, like you said, take them away and get them away from all the attention and their mother who was up to no
well,
good and not making good choices.
that and this and also Neen, did you ever get the feeling that she had her kids in mind at all? She
No.
was always concerned. The only concern
Mhm.
she had was seeing Vili
Yes. It was like an obsession. And
beyond.
yeah, and it's crazy because it's so funny when you were talking about their relationship, Steve and hers. I always assumed they had a really good relationship and that it was like this happened out of the blue, to where
Mhm.
I felt, of course, I still feel bad for him because no one wants to be associated with someone that does this kind of thing. And then you have children on top of it.
Mm,
Um, your heart bleeds for them, right?
yeah.
But to know that obviously they had issues going on, but it's nice to hear that he still had the intentions of the kids
Mhm.
in mind, because she sure as hell didn't at
Not
all.
one.
She
Not
was
one.
completely obsessed and under Billy's spell,
Damn. Like
Mhm.
for real, Neen. Like
Yeah.
there was
She was
like,
very goofy looking. Like, not goofy looking, like she's a very pretty lady, but in some of the pictures, I don't know, there was this one picture in particular that I remember all the time where he's like in a wife beater, a black wife beater, and she's there like looking at him, but
yeah,
she
like
looks so like,
goofy,
yeah,
nerdy.
like, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know why she kind of reminds me of Michael Jackson.
A little bit. No, I can see that
Like
because
there's like an
very gaunt.
innocent and there's like an innocence
Yeah, very
about her.
Peter Pan
Yes,
syndrome. No,
exactly. Big time.
and I think a lot of that has to do with everything that she endured and never addressed when she was a kid. Like
Right.
you get stunted there.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I mean, and not again, we're not excusing what she did at all. She's a
No.
predator
Mm-hmm.
and it's wrong at the end of the day.
Definitely. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and she would the whole time argue that she never ever believed that it was a criminal act. She just thought it was maybe morally wrong,
Mm-hmm.
but not, she didn't deserve to be arrested. They were in love.
Hmm. And
Yeah.
I will say that when you look at it from the outside looking in and how it was depicted in the media back in the day, like people were obsessed with her. Like they were really like enthralled with this case, right? And the thing was is that I don't think people really thought about the fact, and maybe it was the times that
Hmm.
they didn't really think about the fact of how old Billy was, because he did look older.
Right.
And people were really on her side in a way, kind of like backing her up and making it seem like it wasn't that bad in a way. Like there was something, like people felt bad for her.
Yes, I feel like it was divided because on the other hand, she was also vilified because
Mhm.
half the people were intrigued. There's this pretty blonde, like,
Right.
oh, she truly loves him. And then, they ended up together, la 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 la. It was true love. The other half was like, if this had been a man, like, no
Yeah,
way. He
I
would
was
have been
gonna say
locked up,
that.
thrown the key thrown away. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's total double standard.
Mm-hmm.
And when she um she before, like when she gave birth and she hadn't gone to jail yet, people were like, that's kind of the reason why Steve took the kids, because all this people were just kind of like vilifying her, and she
Mm-hmm.
knew it. Like, and
Yeah.
so they had to get out of there.
And it seemed like she
And
didn't care
no, she
at
didn't care at
all.
all. At all.
Yeah.
She was like, this is my man. I love him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all that mattered to her. So I'm glad he got the kids, and I'm glad that he got out of there, because
Definitely. That was the
the
best
her
thing you could have done.
yeah, and
You're
her
right.
actions that followed further proves that he did the right thing. So like in August of 97, so now we're in August, right? August
Mm-hmm.
7th, she pled guilty to child rape in exchange for, are you ready? Hold on to your britches. 3-month jail sentence and probation. Now, the judge, who cracks me up because I'm sorry, I remember seeing it back in the day.
Uh-huh.
So Judge Linda Lau,
Mm-hmm.
he was like, she approved the plea bargain because Mary stood up. She was remorseful. She was like hunched over with her
Mm-hmm.
tissue, putting her curls.
Right.
Please,
Is
have
this where she's in
mercy.
the blue suit?
Yes.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Have mercy on us all. Like, I'll never
Uh-huh.
forget that. I was a little kid, like, wow, I feel sorry
Mm-hmm.
for her.
Yes.
So she sits down,
Exactly.
tears. The judge buys her sob story and
Mm-hmm.
is like, okay, this is what you're going to get. You may never have contact with Vili again. There was an actual for life put in place for
Wow.
life, including when he was an adult. Like, he had to like file paperwork to have it lifted. Okay. So she said,
That's
don't
right.
screw up,
Mm-hmm.
don't screw up. So off she goes. She's released. But part of the, oh, I'm sorry, before that. So she goes to jail. She's like, no, she's in jail, and I saw an interview with her inmates. Oh my God,
Mm-hmm.
these inmates are hilarious. So she's in jail. She's being difficult, to say the least. Okay. So she's
Mm-hmm.
supposed to see a therapist regularly. And I saw this therapist interview. She was interviewed, and the therapist was like, this biatch was late all the time to her appointments. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
she wouldn't even show up. She would have no remorse whatsoever in her
Hmm.
face because she didn't think she did anything wrong. The therapist was like, she's going to reoffend. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so she's in jail, and the therapist is like, the second she gets out, she's going to contact him. I know
Of
this.
course. Yes.
Okay. So there's that. So anyways, she goes through the motions, she completes her wee sentence, and she's put on the sex offender registry. So she's there. So you would think after all this, okay, the public shame, losing her
Mm-hmm.
family, her kids, her career, going to jail, being
Mm-hmm.
labeled a sex offender, you would think, oh, surely she learned her lesson, right? Like,
You
she's
would
going to turn her
think.
life around. Hell to the no. Less than a month later, on February 3rd, after her release, okay, she's like, less than a month later, she was caught in her car with Vili going at it at 2 a.m, and it looked like they were getting ready to flee the country because they had
Wow.
almost $7,000 in cash on them.
No
They had
way.
baby clothes, and they had her passport.
Wow.
So
Dang.
do you remember Linda Lau? Okay, this is the
Yes, good
part
old
that cracks
Linda.
me up. So the judge, so she has to go in front of the same judge that told her don't mess up.
Crap.
She was pissed. Oh my God. I crack up every time I see her tell her,
I have
you've
to go look at this.
you have to. She's hilarious. She's like, you've squandered it away. Like, here we are, less than like, she is swishing her hoops. She's so
Uh-huh.
pissed. It
Oh
is
my
like,
gosh, this is fantastic.
she was like, an opportunity that you foolishly squandered. She's pissed because she looks stupid for like giving her that,
Yeah,
deal.
exactly. Mm-hmm.
So she was like, I'm going to sentence you to the full 7.5 years. Boom. So
Wow.
Mary breaks down, she's in her like her jail, her jumpsuit, and she's just
Mm-hmm.
a wreck. Okay. Sobbing. And guess what? She's preggers again.
Okay. Wow.
So she's pregnant again. She trots on off to jail, like doo doo. October 98, she gives birth to Georgia, Vili's second child, while behind
Wow.
bars. And
The first
G-
child was the child born in like under house arrest or what?
she was like out on parole.
Oh, okay.
So like, because she was gonna give birth and then go back for the sentencing to
Got
plead
ya.
guilty. So, but this time she was up in jail. So you would
Dang.
think you would think after being like told that she squandered this opportunity, like she's gonna stop it. Okay.
You would think.
No. According to these hilarious inmates that gave an interview that were her homies, okay, she still found a way to contact Vili from behind bars. She would pump her breast milk, okay, and then in the lid of the bottle, she would hide notes.
Wow.
So
If there's a will, there's a way.
yeah, and if
she's an example of that.
she really is. So like this poor kid never had a chance, like basically, like ever, because this woman was still going to contact him. So, but you know, they really punished Mary for that. I heard that she was placed in solitary confinement for 5 or 6 months, and the most at that prison was like maybe a month. So like they were tired of her shit. They were like, you know what, we're done. So, but I guess she didn't care. She was like, I need to be with this man. So yeah,
Man,
so that happened.
he really was like an addiction to her.
Truly. Oof. And during all of this, Vili, he's now 15. Okay, he's not even 18 yet.
I was gonna say, is he 18 yet?
No, he's 15. He's a father of 2. And Audrey and Georgia, his daughters, are actually in Suna's custody. So his mom is this poor woman, has to do it all over again and take care of these young little girls.
Man.
And later on, like Vili ended up being interviewed by Barbara Walters and Matt Lauer, and he admitted,
I remember all those.
Yeah, and he admitted there, he was like, you know, he struggled with depression, and he was surprised that he was even still alive. He was depressed that she was in jail, and he was just depressed about the situation at large. Maintained that they loved each other. It was a real thing. Although in some, you know, when he was on the stand for his case against the police department, he was kind of like, well, like he was kind of like a boy. Like I thought she was hot, you know, you know, when 2 people are together, like he was kind of like, ew. But again, he's a teenager. Okay. So, but they maintained throughout that this was true love. Okay. So fast forward, so she's in jail. So August 4th, 2004, she's released after doing her full sentence for child rape. She's released from Washington Correction Center for Women. He's now 21. Okay, so finally the man is an adult.
Ain't no stopping her now, right?
And Vili, he files a motion with the court asking that they reverse the no contact order. He did that. And a couple days after he filed it, Linda Lau grants his motion.
No way, really?
Yeah.
Dang, Linda's still there.
Listen, Linda. Yeah, she did it. So shortly thereafter, the lovebirds start planning their wedding. Yes. And they wed on May 20th, 2005.
Okay, so she's released in 2004. What month?
August.
And they get married in 2005 in October, you said?
May.
In May.
So like she's released, they pick up where they left off, and they're like, we're going to plan a wedding right away. We're going to get married. This is our love. So they get married at some winery in Washington. It's huge affair. Like 250 people are there.
Really?
She takes Fualaau as her surname. Wow. She's proud. She's 43. He's 22 at this point. And their 2 daughters are flower girls, and 2 of her kids, from Steve's marriage, actually attended the wedding. So 2 of the 4. Wow. So, and then after that, they just kind of try to settle down and live their happily ever after. They were married for several years, 14 actually. which is
Wow,
longer than
14
most
years. That's
people.
pretty impressive. And I mean, as a whole,
Yeah.
so dang, so they were together for a long time.
Oh, oh yeah, and they were together to till the very end. Like even so, they divorced in 2019, but
Hmm.
they were always in contact. And she actually passed from colon cancer in
Hmm.
2020, July.
Wow.
And he was by her side. So like
Wow.
one could say, like maybe they really did love each other. But one thing I found kind of interesting, I feel like, yes, maybe they did love each other, but I also feel like they had to put on a facade for the world because
Hmm.
they kept insisting it was true love and they were trying to save
Right.
face. And
Hmm.
like, remember those two inmates I was talking about? So
Hmm.
they were in attendance at that wedding and they actually were friends with Mary like after the fact, which is I think that's kind of cute.
Hmm.
So like they were like homies from
Right.
the inside. Um,
Exactly.
and the ladies, they were saying how they would go to their home. So they had a home on the beach because they were making bank from their story. I mean,
Oh, so smart.
he was a DJ
Uh-huh.
and he would have hot for teacher nights and she was right there wearing a bikini, like
Oh
playing it
my
up.
gosh.
Any chance they could get, they were going to cash in on. Like I
Wow.
think they wrote books and released some in Paris, I think, while she was in jail, and he was able to
Hmm.
use the money to take care of his kids. But like so I feel like with all of that they had to like put up a front. So but going back to the two friends, they were saying how they would be at the house and Vili would be playing video games with his friends in one room, and Mary was kind of like a house mother, like a den mom, would
Hmm.
like bring them snacks and whatnot. They were like they weren't really like when they were together, it wasn't like husband and wife, it was like roommates,
Yeah.
and they were interviewed after their wedding or something, not that long ago, like maybe 10
Hmm.
years ago.
Hmm.
And one of the person interviewing them was like, what do you guys have in common? And they were blankly sitting there like, huh? And he's like, silence. And he's like, do you mean besides being human? And then they're like, yeah. And then she's like, well, we
Was
like
that
the same music.
was that Barbara Walters that did that interview, or is
No.
this a different
Well,
one?
I'm sure Barbara asked the same question.
Yeah.
This was like on another, it was another woman. It was like a talk show, like Good Morning America, I think it
Gotcha.
was. So yeah, it was palpable, like the tension. I was
Hmm.
like, you guys don't like, are you real? So maybe
No,
they were at
exactly.
one point, but
Hmm.
like they had to keep up the facade till the end, and they did.
Yeah, they sure did. Because, I remember seeing the one with Barbara Wawa.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted, and it's so funny because obviously I didn't know the specifics of the case. And even when you brought up that you wanted to talk about this one, I was just like, oh, yeah. Like, I didn't really realize how young he was.
Yeah.
I didn't at all. Because, when you think about it, like we were talking about, if the tables were turned, I mean, we would have been like, ew, that's disgusting.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, in a weird way, men, not men, or men, but even you hear kids talk about like that, the older woman, and how it's like they're like a prize in some ways. Like
Yeah.
it's kind of like this, not a fetish, what would you call it? Like a fantasy, you know,
Yes.
and like the teacher, and you know what I
Of
mean? And them like
course.
taking control of them and all this
Yeah.
stuff. And when I was watching these interviews back in the day, because I didn't
Yeah.
really know the specifics, and they asked that kind of question, like, oh, what do you guys have in common? I was sitting there hoping that he would say something and you would believe that it was real. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? I
Yeah.
guess to justify the actions of them both, right? Not really understanding or realizing the grossness of it until
Yeah.
now, because I was young then too. But when you talk about it and you hear all the little tiny details, and like you said, them over the house and him playing video games and her just,
Yeah.
it was like she was still parenting him.
Yeah.
That's gross.
Yeah, it was
Ugh.
very like
Yeah.
maternal.
Yeah, and that's just not okay on so many levels. And I mean, I personally, hell, if that was you, I don't think I could be your friend. I
Yeah.
would be like, there's something wrong with you, Mary. Like
Well,
literally.
and her friend did like the best friend. I mean, they weren't friends after she went back to jail for the after Linda Lau was like, "You're going back." She was like, was quoted saying like she was gonna do what she was gonna do. Like she
Mm-hmm.
wanted to be with him. I cannot support that. And she
Well, that's
mentioned
good.
that maybe like the trauma of her childhood had a lot to do with it. But I, you just if
Yeah.
everyone around you is telling you that it's wrong,
Mm-hmm.
if a judge is telling you, I'm giving you this opportunity, just don't do it again. It's don't do it again. Like clearly it's wrong. Wait till he's
Exactly.
21 then.
Yes. And the thing is like, I wonder if anybody ever asked her how would she feel if her son
Mm,
was
I'm
being
sure.
was in a relationship with his older teacher or her daughter,
Mhm.
vice versa, you know, would she be okay with that? Although I could see her saying, well, if they're in love, I don't see anything wrong with it. Because she seemed rather loopy, like she was just kind of like in the clouds, you know. Did she have like bipolar or anything like
It
that, or
was it was speculated that she had several like disabilities,
because didn't
but
they say she had multiple personalities?
I had read
I know
that
there's,
too.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know if it was confirmed or not, but I mean, because some of the pictures, not that you could tell that someone has that by looking at photos, but that one particular photo, I was like, okay, she's looking kind of crazy, you know?
Yeah. How about that mug shot though? Not the first one, but like where she's got the bangs and she's like, oh,
Yes, exactly. She
yeah.
just kind of looks off a rocker. Like she just
Yes.
like not all there, you know?
Definitely. Yes, but again, all of that, like she till her death maintained that it was love. Like they were soulmates. It was
Hmm.
not it wasn't wrong. It was right. Like they were meant to be.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
She was fully committed. That's
She
pretty.
tr-
And I
she did it to the end.
Yeah, she sure did, and it didn't seem like Billy was. I feel like you said, Billy was along for the ride. You know what I mean? I don't think he really understood. Maybe if you interviewed him now, if he was in a relationship with someone his own age or, you know, normal per se,
Yeah.
I wonder if he would have a different outlook on that relationship as a whole. And I mean, personally, I do think that maybe you could say, yes, he did love her. I mean, they had children. He probably, that love grew into something different. Obviously, you love the mother of your children, right? Or vice versa. But that's just so gross, you know, and
I
it's
mean,
abuse. It's child abuse, you know, that's just so sickening.
yes, I wholeheartedly agree. So would you say that you were, because some people believed, and I'm one of them, and I think you are too, she
Hmm.
was a predator and she took advantage of a
Definitely.
vulnerable child.
Hmm.
Other people argue that she genuinely loved him and he genuinely loved her and their relationship was consensual.
Hmm.
Like, I feel like,
Um, I don't think
con-
that a child can
mhm,
decide whether or
exactly.
not it is consensual when you're that young. You don't even know your own body. You don't even know the feelings that you're feeling at that age or what love is. You don't know. You know,
Exactly.
it's more lust. You're in the moment, you know, you have a teacher that you have a crush on is reciprocating all these things that you're desiring in your heart, right? Or beyond. And you're getting that confused with something else, you
Hmm.
know, and as you get older, um, now you gotta, I guess, hold on to that. And the thing, because I read somewhere that he was really pissed off that he was being called a victim his whole life.
Yes,
And he held
exactly.
on to that. And I think that prevented him from ever admitting that there was any sort of wrongdoing,
Hmm.
because that
Definitely.
would have basically, it would have basically made them guilty of everything that everybody's been ever telling them.
Right. So would you agree that, okay, because of the whole consent thing, like kids under 18 can't consent, right? There's laws in
Correct.
place. And he would argue that, no, I'm not a victim. Da, da, da. So would you say that he was a willing participant? Or is that like,
You know, I think there's a very thin line, and I do think though that yes, I do believe he in a lot of ways was at just as much at fault as her, in the sense of how he pursued her. When you're young, you still he wasn't a kid. Like, he wasn't a baby.
right.
He was of the age of puberty. That's when you know between right and wrong. It's kind of like you don't sleep with your sister. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you know what you should do and what you shouldn't do, and you
Yeah.
don't get involved with your teacher. You don't try to um you know get involved with them. You don't um flirt with them. You
Yeah.
don't write notes to them.
Ugh.
Innocent love notes might be okay, like, like any little kid would do. Oh, my teacher's pretty,
Yeah.
but it's not like, oh, I want to uh you know touch your breasts. Like, I mean, you don't do
Uh-huh.
that kind of stuff.
No.
That's just gross. And I
I
think too that it's the environment that he came from. He wanted bragging rights. Like, we don't know what was going on behind the scenes. And I think he was just very lonely, very lonely. And he didn't have that upbringing that maybe he desired. And going into her house, even though maybe it wasn't very healthy because of the situation between her and Steve, I think though that was something that he desired too, to have, because he didn't have that at home. And maybe in this weird way he thought he could have that with her,
yeah.
and she played into it because she also was lacking a lot in, her area. But I do believe that she definitely was a predator, in the sense
Hmm.
because he was a child. He still was under 18. um I know it gets tricky as they get older, because a lot of times kids can claim, oh, they could trick the older person into thinking that they're
Hmm.
older. But she knew how old he was. And that should have been enough for her to be like, oh, he's a handsome little boy, but you don't do that.
Right. No, I
So,
agree. And also, I don't think, had Mary listened to the judge and never contacted him again, do you think like he could have had a shot at a different life, or the fact that he shared kids with her now, he was just never gonna
mm,
recuperate from that? He was no contact for life, but those are still the kids he had with his abuser. So
correct.
I guess he never really would have had a shot. Maybe had they
I don't
not
think
had
so.
kids, he
I think
might
it would have
have.
been way different if they didn't have kids. Because I think you might have said it, or maybe I had heard it somewhere else, that the mom had a soft spot because they had a kid together. So seeing her behind bars or being thrown in a slammer for this, she felt they were doing a disservice to the child. So if it wasn't the judge saying it, it was the mom saying it. It was like all these people that were kind of on her side. Like, I don't understand the concept of giving her like a slap on the wrist kind of thing. I don't understand that, because honestly, this is a very if it was a man that did this, we would
Oh,
be calling him a nasty ass pedophile, gross, whatever.
there would
And
be no
no,
argument at
we wouldn't even
all.
be having this conversation, because
Exactly.
but somehow it was glamorized and it was
Yes.
made
Oh,
into this love
yeah.
story. They made it into this
Definitely.
love story. And I think, like you said, part of it was too, is that they saw they could get money from it. You had people like Barbara Walters, what's that guy's name?
Matt Lauer.
Matt Lauer, all these big time,
Totally.
news anchors, journalists that want a piece
That
of them and their
story.
story. So
Yep.
they're like, oh, well, we can make some money off it. And I wouldn't be surprised, because even I heard after they got married, I mean, their families were somewhat okay with it. Like
Yeah.
they became accepting of it,
Right.
which is weird too.
I agree 1,000%. He would always be that little boy,
Yeah.
that he would always be the boy that was once her second grade
Hmm.
student too.
Definitely.
It's just ooey.
Yeah, it is because a little kid can't make the same decisions that an adult can.
Exactly.
And like you said, if they would have waited and maybe she had the original sentence and the 7 years passed and then they got back together after, or they met up,
Mhm.
right? And they realized, oh, we still have feelings for each other. Oh, whatever. I don't know. I don't want to say that would make it right because it was still wrong, but it's just like you said, it's icky on all forms. It's just very disturbing, actually.
Yeah.
And this kind of stuff would not cut it nowadays.
Oh
That's for
no.
sure.
No, and I do think that this case definitely was impactful on our society. I mean, I feel like it raised a lot of important issues when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to the grooming process, your favorite,
Mm,
that predators use to
gross.
manipulate their victims, and then
Yes.
the power dynamics that exist in relationships between adults and kids. So like,
Mhm.
and then it also kind of like brought to our attention that sexual abuse can happen to anyone, regardless of gender or age. It's
Mhm.
not just male teachers and female students. Look at this, it's totally flipped. So
Completely.
I feel like I'm not a parent, but I feel like it kind of like would bring to a parent's attention, like, hey, my child, let's talk about like the signs of what could happen if
Mhm.
someone's being inappropriate. Always, and I know that you have that with Pretzel, like you
Mhm.
have an open and honest relationship. She would tell you if things were happening.
Right.
Suna didn't have that opportunity. Like Vili was never going to
Absolutely.
tell his mom that because he had a crush on his teacher. So
Mm.
like it's just, I just feel
And I think
like
he kind of felt like this big man on campus, knowing that
totally,
he had the teacher. And, they were,
totally.
there was this like excitement to it, the fact that they were doing this without anybody knowing. And it was their little secret,
Hmm.
and ugh. I mean, I don't know. I just think that it's one of those things that we didn't really hear a lot about back in the day. I mean, you would hear, I guess, maybe male teachers. I don't know. It was weird for me to see a woman
Yeah.
teacher do this to a little kid. And I want to say maybe last year or the year before, there was quite a few.
Yes. Female
Right?
teachers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is going on? And it's funny because when they interview these people or they talk about the story, these women seem like it's no big deal.
Yeah. They're like, whatevs.
Hmm.
He's hot.
It's rather frightening
It is.
because I'm like, what's wrong with you? Like, how could you even think that's okay? And it's frightening. And actually, it would be a very interesting interview to interview someone like that, to see their reasoning behind that. And
The justification.
yeah, what made you want to do that, or what made you think it was okay?
Okay. Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah. Your
it's
oath as a teacher, you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
you vow to like educate
right.
and take care of, not abuse that power.
Hmm.
It's just, it's so
Correct. It's like,
disrespectful.
did you go into teaching to somehow do this, or was this something
Exactly.
that just happened? Because I'm sorry, when I look at little kids, I don't look at little boys and think that they're attractive.
Exactly. No.
I may
No.
say, "Oh, Johnny's so handsome. Like he's such a
Yeah.
cutie. He's so handsome." And you could say, "Oh, he's going to be a stunner when he grows up." You know what I mean?
Exactly. But
But oh,
that's
he's
it.
fine. I'm not going to
Yeah. No.
That's
No.
just wrong. You don't talk about kids in that manner. And
Yeah.
it kind of goes along the lines of like what we've talked about quite a few times recently, like with social media sometimes, is that people sometimes nowadays have free form, like this forum to kind of say whatever the hell they want,
Hmm.
and no one's slapping them on the wrist for it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of scary how free people feel with the words and things that they're saying to young kids.
It, I always like at least once a day, I'll be like, okay, I'm ready to move to Mars now. Like, just,
For sure. I would
yeah.
be right there with you, because
Yep.
it's not getting any better.
No,
And
it's not.
I mean, she's it's sad. She had a very wacky life, it seemed.
I feel sorry for young Mary because she was robbed of a chance at a normal life.
Mhm.
Like, and I think I do believe that she was a victim of sexual abuse from a relative. I don't think that was a story she spun.
Mhm.
And when that happens to someone, how do you ever really like recover from that moving forward in life? So
Correct.
I really feel for younger Mary. And
Mhm.
yeah, I
I
just think
do. I do
I
too. Cuz
she yeah, she's always her story has always fascinated me because of everything we just talked about. Like, how could someone in this position do abuse their power in that way? But I don't know. Why did she fascinate everyone in America? Because she was like this blonde, pretty, like
Mhm. And it goes along the
cookie
lines
cutter
of,
teacher. Hmm.
yeah, and it goes along the lines of nowadays how they
Hmm.
talk about she was a beautiful blonde hair, blue eye. I don't know if she had blue eyes. I think she did.
Yeah.
White lady
Yep.
that, you know, ah, it's just one of those things that we talk about all the time now when it comes to how people just get away with stuff.
Because of their looks.
Hmm.
So
And
if
I
you were
mean,
butt ugly, like you'd get a sentence for longer. Like I'm starting to believe that because it doesn't look sexy for a made for TV movie.
right, exactly. And she really, I must say, looking at her pictures and the progression of her look,
Yeah.
I mean, she was pretty, very like Betty Crocker back in the day in a
50s
way.
mom. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it became, more modern, but
Yeah.
she was very beautiful, very
Yeah.
pretty lady, like her bone structure, and she's just a very pretty lady. And yes, I do think that there was something wrong with her. Like
Definitely.
whether, like you said, if her childhood factored into it. I'm a big time supporter of the fact that I don't feel like you should be a victim, in the sense of she should have learned from her childhood issues and made,
Mhm.
you know, positive um steps
Changes.
forward, and
Yeah.
versus going down this path. But at the same time, this is a perfect example of how therapy helps, because it's obvious that there were a lot of things that Mary went through that did not get resolved, and it manifested into a lot of chaos and turmoil in her life, and it freaking just overflowed even into her kids, because I'm pretty sure her kids still are
Oh
plagued
yeah.
with it.
The
That's awful.
whisper. No, yeah. And what's the most fascinating about all this is how her life was full circle,
Totally.
victim
Mm-hmm.
to predator,
Mm-hmm.
father having an affair with a student. She followed in his footsteps. It's
Mm-hmm.
just
Did he get in trouble for that? And was he, because
his
being that he
career.
was in politics and stuff, did he get
Yeah, his career was pretty much like went
done?
down the toilet from there because his whole stance was being moral. And to
Mm,
be moral,
go figure.
you're faithful to your wife and you take care of your kids. So that was his whole like thing, and he shot that. I mean, but the difference here is that the student that he had an affair with was a former student and she was also of age. So
Okay.
not the same, but not totally different. But
Yeah.
yeah, that was Mary Kay's story.
Wow. Yeah, that's a very a very interesting story with a lot of things that I didn't know at all. And it's very interesting, like you just said, how her life really did mirror her dad's in a lot of ways. And I don't know, it's just weird when you look at things like we talked about this a couple weeks ago, how you look at famous people and
Yeah.
how they marry very young women, some
Yeah.
men, and I mean, literally, some of them are like 2 or 3 times their age and they're
Mhm.
having babies with them. And when you look at it and you look like, oh, you were this age when I was this age, but there's that threshold. Once you turn 18, I guess there's, it is what it is.
Yes,
Right?
exactly. When you are
So,
legally an adult and can make
mhm,
your own decisions.
exactly.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
but it's just so funny how there is a very different take on it when the tables are turned. Because it's funny when you're younger, when you look at Mary Kay and him, he was a boy, young boy, and she was an adult. And
Yeah,
obviously it's different, if the tables were turned then. But when they're older, it's funny how society accepts more the woman being or the man being older and the woman being younger versus vice
totally.
versa. And the whole Demi and Ashton thing just doesn't flow with people at all.
Exactly. Exactly. I know.
Oh,
And Ashton was a big boy, so it's just
he
funny.
sure was. It's just so funny how our society is. But I think that with this case, yeah, it's a very it's a very twisted web.
It really is. And yeah, may
I don't
she
know, but I enjoyed it though. I really did.
yeah.
That was a good one, Steph, because I actually forgot about her. And when I looked her up and I saw the pictures and stuff, and I'm gonna go look at that courtroom
Oh my
YouTube
God, the
video of
judge,
her with
Linda
the
Lau.
judge.
Oh my God.
Oh
She was
gosh.
pissed. You do not make Linda
Wow.
Lau look bad. Oh, I just text me if it makes you crack up too. Like
Yes,
you
I
see her
will.
all like I'm gonna give you a chance, and then like a couple months later, you gotta
We're
see it.
back.
You gotta see it. And it's like hilarious. I made
Oh my
Angel watch it.
gosh.
She was like in tears laughing. So yeah, let me know what you think.
It's amazing. No,
Yay.
rest in peace, Mary Kay, because
Yep.
she needs it. Because I really do
Yeah.
think she was struggling throughout her life, mentally, emotionally, and you know, I don't know. It's just weird how life happens. And is there any updates on him? I'm gonna have to look. I wonder if she died in 2019, 20.
She passed in July of 2020, and he was
Okay,
like right there with her. So I hope that he is able to like have some sort of a life. His
yeah,
daughters are older now, and I would love to read a story about him down the line where he's like fallen in love and like just
totally.
starting over.
It would
So
actually
here's
be
hoping.
interesting to hear the perspective of the daughters. I'm
Oh,
sure they've done
definitely.
interviews. How old are they? Or are they still too young?
No, they're teenagers.
Okay.
And they were around. They didn't really speak. I've
Hmm.
only seen like pictures of them out. Actually, never mind. I don't think I've seen video footage of them, but they're beautiful girls. They look
Hmm.
just like him, and they seem to look at least pretty well adjusted. So
Wow.
here's hoping that some goodness comes out
No,
of
I
all of
agree.
this, of all
I
this turmoil.
agree. But I think that was an awesome episode, Steph.
Woo, thank you. It was fun dishing with you tonight.
Definitely, I agree. Now, do you have I we don't know, it'll be a surprise what your next one is. But do you have any can you give us a glimpse of some cases that you are wanting to cover just so we could be
Totally.
excited?
Yeah. So I definitely want to cover, the murder of Selena. That's coming down the pike. I want to talk about the Ken and Barbie killers of Canada. That
Oh
might be
yeah, I
the
remember
next
you
one.
talking about
Yeah.
that.
I don't know. And I also kind of want to dish about like this bowling alley massacre that happened in New
Oh.
Mexico. And to my knowledge, it's still unsolved. So I feel like that might be a little fun to not
Oh
fun.
yeah.
God, I hate saying that, but like
I know.
that. Also the Menendez brothers was in the
Yes.
90s. So that's on my list for sure. Jenny Jones. I want to talk about the Jenny Jones murder.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good one.
Yeah, there's just so many. There, JC Lee Dugard, the kidnapping,
Mm-hmm.
that took
Oh,
place.
that's right. That's
So,
when did Jean Benet Ramsey
in the
happen?
90s,
It was in the 90s, but that is such a
I'm
convoluted case.
creepily smiling. Can you slap me? I mean, there's so much that happened in the 90s, and
It did.
I definitely, I want to like talk about them all because man, the 90s
Yeah.
was lit.
And I
So,
think just like with this case, and just like with the poly class case, and just like I said in the beginning, you realize how much information we just don't know. And
exactly.
it gives us a different perspective on things too. And I like cases like the Menendez brothers, like once you hear the full story, you may think differently
Mm-hmm.
about them.
Oh,
It's just
yeah.
like the Scott Peterson case, after watching
Yes.
certain things,
Yes.
hearing certain things, you may think differently,
Uh-huh.
because yeah, so I'm excited to see what's coming down the river.
Oh, yeah. Yay.
Ah,
I'm excited too. And I really hope that you guys enjoyed our conversation.
conversation. I actually
Conversation.
like that stuff. Conversation.
I like it too. We're gonna, we're gonna, what is it? Patent that.
Yes, exactly. I like that along with a few other things that you know what? I'm very good about not remembering stuff. And I'll just be like, what was that? Or I'll say things backwards, not how they're supposed to be. But you say things like the word, but it's different. Like bay.
Oh
Like
my
you
God.
combine things.
Yes, when I don't think and I talk too fast, it comes out
I love it,
mush.
but it comes out with good, cool words like conversation.
Little bit conversation.
Okay, who knows? If we use it enough, it might end up in a dictionary somewhere or
Ooh,
Wikipedia.
I love
I
it.
know, because I really like that word. I'm just saying. On that note,
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, thank you again for talking with me tonight, Neen. I had such a blast. And thank you
oh,
to
yes.
everyone who's listening and subscribing to our YouTube and following us on Instagram and following us on TikTok. We love you guys so, so
Yes,
much.
we do.
And yeah, Neen, until next time, we're gonna catch you on the flip side. I almost forgot what I say.
Oh, yeah. Peace out, buddy.